Hey y'all, welcome to Geek Freaks. I am Frank and I'm with Jonathan.
Well, hello.
And we were recording in person with very active dogs nearby, so we want to get that out of the way right away. They're cheering us on as we go. Jonathan, how have you been?
I've been great. No complaints.
Yes. No complaints on my end either. We're going to be doing D&D today, so that's why we're meeting in person. We're circled around by dice and printed minifigs and everything like that, so it's been very hectic. But let's go ahead and get right into this. Our question for the week is, do fictional characters deserve a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame? So this week, Batman got a star. He's the first superhero to get a star, and he's a fictional character. It's not the actor or anything like that. It's just straight up Batman.
Yeah.
What are your initial thoughts on that?
To me, right away, I think, no, that's not right. This should be reserved for the actors or, but the people who made these movies and stuff like that. But I don't know who founded this whole, Hollywood Walk of Fame and what their intentions were with these stars. So I think that's really what it boils down to, is who started this, what's the tradition, and how do we maintain the tradition as it was originally intended?
Yeah, I think it's probably just a cash grab, right? A tourist trap, essentially, to go check out the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But also, I think it negates some of its prestige. And there's been a lot of them. I've noticed they've kind of ticked up how often they're giving out these stars.
Yeah.
Like every month there's a new one. It's a lot.
Yeah.
They're not even like on the same row anymore. But yeah, if you're going to give them to somebody like Batman, now you're opening up a whole new can of worms. You're like, what about Superman? What about, Iron Man?
It can go endless.
Frankly, what Iron Man has launched in the MCU, it probably deserves a Hollywood Walk. Batman does too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like hating on Batman, of course.
Yeah.
I'm not an idiot, but I just think it takes away some of the prestige, right?
Yeah, and I mean the writer that made the Batman comic books would deserve the credit rather than the character himself, or the actor who portrayed him in the movie that launched him or something. So it's the character is great, but the character isn't in the real world the person that made this happen. So I mean, I think there's a different place we could do something like that, celebrate our favorite characters, but you open a can of worms and it doesn't give credit where the credit is due, I think.
I agree with you. So I put this over on Threads and asked everybody. Very vocal responses, very contested, heated conversations going on. Aaron from Fandom Portals, a member of the network, says Bugs Bunny's got one too. I love Batman, but I think no, it cheapens how it feels, and how do they decide? I'm pretty sure Spider-Man is the most popular one, has made the most money through over Batman. So Batman versus Spider-Man, I believe Batman's more worthy because first off, he's got the older stuff, and secondly, he's had this longevity of like refreshing the actors and stuff like that more often, and he's a more mainstream movie character.
Yeah.
Overall, I think Spider-Man might be more popular like worldwide.
Yeah, and right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Batman has stood the test of time a lot more successfully than Spider-Man, with more hurdles and everything.
Hurston Ho says Batman is more of a contributor to Hollywood. There's so many people who have paid for their spot on the sidewalk, saying that there are people who actually pay for their spots. And the fewer secret identities. Also, his arch nemesis has gotten 2 Oscars. So Joker has gotten 2 Oscars with Heath Ledger, and I believe Jack Nicholson's the other one.
Yeah.
This one says Shrek has one, and I think Mickey Mouse as well. The Simpsons has ones too. So kind of the justification of it's okay for Batman to get a star is that other fictional characters have a star. My question is, they all cheapen it though.
Yeah, exactly. So I think at this point, it's already been cheapened. And we need to ask, like, what's the criteria to get a star? Like you're saying, some people have just bought them. So that means that's like when you could buy a super sword in a game that you can kill everything faster with. It ruins the game. It breaks the game. So this isn't worth our time and attention anymore. If there was somebody else somewhere else that wanted to make a different collection of, celebrities that are honored maybe once a year, you win a special, for best actor of the year or something like that, and you get a plaque on a big wall or something. Cool. Let's have established criteria for that. And then there will be some respect and honor behind being on there. But if there's no criteria, then it's just pointless.
Yeah, I think maybe in a yearly an award that goes to an actual person, a creator that has changed the industry would be worthy of something elevated beyond the stars. Obviously, the stars have already been well used, but maybe something new that maybe goes up with the sign up in the hills and stuff like that would be pretty nice.
Yeah,
but yeah, I do like the idea. Like the Oscars obviously feel like they're one sided too. We talk about it all the time. So it's like if you're really real, then Iron Man again would win an Oscar or something like that. More Marvel characters.
Yeah, and so I think it'd be best narrow down what this criteria is. What are we talking about? Like best actor in a movie or best influence in our culture or something like that, and then have the people vote. And then when you put the plaque up, it is so and so Tobey Maguire, 2013 or whatever. You have the year that they got that award, and they're the only one for that whole year that gets that award. And it would be permanent somewhere.
I really like the idea of the people voting. Maybe even the people of LA County or LA, the city in general, or something like that would be even more accurate too, because it's like industry award.
Yeah.
Thinking about that now, say if there is like one person for this year that's going to get an industry award, who would you think on the top of your head while you're thinking about that? The first that comes to mind is Kevin Feige for me, because he was first off an assistant on the X-Men movies and was kind of the nerdy guy.
Yeah.
He snuck X-Men comics to Hugh Jackman so he could learn about who Wolverine is, because the guys that were making that movie didn't want it to be too superhero-y.
Yeah.
And he's like, you got to learn who Wolverine is. He's freaking cool. And now he's built this empire that we have, this incredibly high standard for. And it's changed how Hollywood will be forever. Forever's changed because of Marvel. So I think Kevin Feige deserves this new honor.
Yeah, I think you're right. And really anybody, whoever we pick would probably be from the MCU in some way, from Marvel, because they've had such a big impact in the last several years. But then I was thinking like Ryan Reynolds, because Deadpool was so big and he's in the front of the camera, not behind the scenes. So people recognize him and his name more, which is one factor I think would be kind of a challenge in having the people vote, is the people see the one on stage. They don't see the ones that are running it behind. So we'd have to kind of like, not campaign, but kind of promote that, like, oh, well, I think this guy, individual, citizens would have to say, oh, I think this guy deserves it because he made these movies and he played this big part in your favorite movies, even though he's not the actor. He is the producer, or he was the, props designer or something like that. And, we would have to take it on ourselves to pitch for the less visible people involved.
So maybe there shouldn't be necessarily a wide open vote, but maybe something where you have like to have the Oscars, right? Where it's like 100 people who vote on the Oscar winners.
Yeah.
But try to be a little more diverse than just the old white guys that are running
now
the
we're
Oscar.
making our own electoral college.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
But it could be just like members of the Screen Actors Guild, or, members of that industry in a certain way.
Yeah, the unions maybe. That would be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I'm throwing out there Christopher Nolan, who makes sure to bring in practical effects into a CGI world, stuff like that. Like, there's always different ones who I think deserve that recognition, not so much next to Bugs Bunny, Scooby-Doo, and Batman. That just cheapens the whole thing.
And there could be a different place for people's favorite characters, cartoon characters and stuff like that. That's great, but by mixing them and not having a standard of why you're doing it or what's required to be there, it just, like you're saying, it cheapens it in a whole.
Kind of thinking we should do it.
Yeah, we could.
We always do the end of the year stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll make that part of this year's thing, as we pick like one industry changer that we want to award.
And we could make maybe 3 different awards if there's different categories in the industry that we really want to recognize.
Yeah.
But then, we do our thing, we release it on the podcast, and then we can make a real award and send it to that person.
I think we're going to do this, Jonathan.
Yeah, I like it.
What about an ivory statue?
Yeah.
Or not ivory, real ivory, but like white. I want to make like a white statue. Okay, it's happening. We're making this happen now. We're going to do the award. Okay, cool. I did not plan on that happening. That's fun. I'm already designing the statue in my head now. Okay, so guys, get ready to vote for that in December. That's how podcasting works, guys. That's how ideas happen.
All right.
Moving on to our next thing here, Jonathan. First off, I want to address, there is a major leak about Agatha All Along, revealing a lot of the story coming up. I talked about it on the headlines. We're not going to talk about it here because I don't want anybody to be spoiled if they don't want to be spoiled. And in a podcast, when you're driving, it's hard to fast forward.
All right.
So don't worry. We're not going to talk about the leaks here. But if you do want to know about them, over on headlines with plenty of warning, I even have like a little timer on top, making sure people knew to go ahead and skip that.
I don't think it really ruins the show or anything like that. It's just, it probably takes away suspense that we're going to find later on.
Yeah. It takes away the big reveal that they're waiting for. So if you listen to Challenge Accepted, all we're talking about is what is this person? Who is this person? And it just undid that. And then I'm talking to Thomas. I'm like, do you see the leak? And he's like, no, don't tell me. And I'm like, okay, I won't tell you. It's going to make Challenge Accepted tricky.
Right. We can't talk about this without going over it now.
Well, because the entire Challenge Accepted right now, like our last episode we joked about, but after we got done recording about Agatha episode 3
Mhm.
was like, all we've done this entire episode is like pitch ideas to each other
Speculate.
and then try to like, that sounds cool too. That was the entire half an hour. And now it's going to be like, he's pitching ideas and be like, it's not that.
Close. Try again.
Yeah.
Oh, don't tell me.
Yeah. So don't worry, guys. Again, Headlines has that. Let's discuss a couple new trailers we had. Jonathan, did you have a chance to watch The Last of Us Season 2's first trailer?
I did. I actually seen it. It's been a few days now, though, on TikTok, I think.
Yeah.
It must have been your TikTok. I always see your TikTok.
There's a chance. There's a pretty good chance of that.
But it looks good. I'm excited for it. I can't remember how long has it been since season 1 finished.
It feels too long already.
It feels like it's been 2 years.
Yeah,
right?
it might have been like about a year and a half. Yeah.
Oh my God. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I don't remember a lot of the details, though. I remember we do see Tommy, I think, his brother in there.
His brother's in there. They're in the town of Jackson now. They're living their life. They kind of have some establishment in there.
Yeah.
But then we're going to be introduced to a new character, and I'm not going to go into the video game, guys, because I don't want you to, again, spoilers.
Yeah.
But there's a new character coming up named Abby.
Oh, that's right. We see
She's a troublemaker.
Oh, okay.
And she's coming with an army of troublemakers, essentially,
shit.
to really be a problem.
Mhm.
So I'm as a video game player, very excited for this. But as a TV show watcher, I'm like, does this feel like it's getting too close to Walking Dead's territory?
I don't know. They have their core premise is different enough, I think. So as long as they're not steering towards Walking Dead, I think they'll be okay. But we're already seeing the parallels, which is very common in video games and stuff, where like the sickness of the world isn't this disease, but it's the humanity, and it's like, it's a really cool thing to explore, but you got to be careful you're not walking on the same footprints as the last guy. So that'll be interesting.
It's funny because about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that question would have been so unexplored.
Yeah.
That'd have been like, oh my God, you blew my mind. It's kind of like the Watchmen thing. It's like, what if superheroes weren't that super? And now we've seen it so many times. It's not the question anymore. And like, oh, good. Superman's just going to be Superman in the new movie. I'm excited for that.
Wait until scripts are written by AI and they're just redigesting old content.
Oh, no.
It's going to be the same thing.
Oh, God.
We need fresh ideas, guys.
But this does look really good. And I think we've heard it at the end of season 1. The writers talking about how for season 2, they're going to be taking the second game and splitting it in half.
Yeah.
And I think they're even going to do a little bit of a moving around even more so that the big turning point, again, avoiding spoilers, the big turning point in the second game, I think will end with season 2. It makes sense to me.
Okay.
And then that way we go into season 3 with kind of some revenge and hatred in our heart. And maybe that'll kind of feel that. And I'm hoping they're filming them a little bit closer to each other than they are for this one.
So as long as they don't do what House of the Dragon did, there was that last episode was all suspense and you did not get that final episode complete.
Yeah.
It was just a wasted episode pretty much. It was all, this thing is coming and we're expecting it's going to have a resolution and then set us up for a big suspense we're waiting for the next season. Nope. Nothing. It was just, I could have gone and done something else, a waste of time. So I hope they don't do that, because in splitting a story in multiple pieces, a lot of times you're trying to look for a cliffhanger in the middle that wasn't there to put it on. And I'm sure they could write it in, and a small scene, a small little event can be elaborated to make it more suspenseful and make a cliffhanger out of it. But they got to make sure they do a good job at giving us an end to the season and setting us up ready and waiting for the next season to come.
Yeah. Yeah, they really need to work on that. And it's something where with that, if they gave them another 20 minutes, half an hour, another episode, perfect. You would have gotten to a new turning point in that storyline. I mean, they're right there at a turning point, guys.
Yeah, it's like they're waiting. We're just waiting at the edge of it.
Yeah, and so I'm predicting that season 3, episode 1 of House of the Dragon, you're going to be into a whole new storyline. I don't even know how they're going to advertise that show, John. I'm not going to lie to you, because so many things change after what's about to happen that I don't know what you can show in an ad to not spoil it all.
Yeah.
It's very interesting how they're going to do that.
And I know that episode was going to be, that battle is going to be CGI heavy, and I'm sure it saved them a lot of money to not put that in right now.
Yeah.
But do you think they're going to skip that whole battle and do a little time jump?
No, maybe that's why they had to split it in two. I know David Zaslav, the guy who's running Warner Brothers, who again is doing this as well with The Last of Us. He is real cheap on the pennies.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh,
and
come on.
that's kind of a problem right now. And George R. R. Martin, we talked about this before, where he's kind of complaining about, he's just being complaining. He's an old man. Shut up and write. But that's part of the problem is they're not in the days when they were making a Game of Thrones where they were like, oh, we just want to win awards and make art.
Yeah.
They're not doing that anymore. Now they're got David Zaslav's over there who made this merger happen and stuff. And he's like, is it profitable? House of Dragons is profitable because it adds prestige to the brand.
Yeah.
And,
But yeah, there's so much further down the road that the content probably doesn't bring nearly as much attention and money as it used to.
Yeah.
So they're trying to milk it at this point, try to get as much get as close to, being profitable as they can.
Yeah.
When in the early days, there was so much hype and excitement around it. It was probably a cash cow. It was easy, but sell some more merch or something like that. Put exclusive items out there that we can order, and your fans will order a lot of it. It will cost you money to make the money, and it's a risk, but I think there's still a lot of loyalists that will continue to buy whatever they put out there.
Yeah. In the old Game of Thrones days, I don't know if you remember this, but they used to really push this idea that it's okay if you bootleg it, because
that's cool.
Yeah. Well, the idea was you're going to bootleg it, and then if you're going to go through the effort of bootlegging it, you're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And you're going to talk about it with people who don't know how to bootleg it, and they're going to pay for HBO. Not Max. Max was very new at the time. They had HBO Go back in those days. It was very confusing for the non-tech savvy.
Yeah.
But people would buy it because somebody else was talking about it. Yeah. So now HBO Max is very easy to get, or just Max, because they don't know how to market themselves. And it just trying to churn out as much as possible for as cheap as possible.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to hurt everybody.
Do you think there's a different way that streaming services can get funded? So we talked about, and we're going to talk more about at some point, different video games where you get the game for free, but then you pay for DLCs and stuff like that. And that's a choice, but those people making that choice fund for the rest of them to play, for everyone to play.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's something that we could do like that with streaming services. I know they have some that have ads included. They're cheaper, but something where it's even completely free, and you do have ads, and in between ads, you have options to like buy things or something like that. Or maybe you like, for some of the shows, some of the premium shows, you get the first 3 episodes, but then you'd have to pay for to just that show or that series or subscription to be able to see it or something like that, so that you have access to more, but it doesn't have to cost you as much.
That's an interesting idea. I think that would be, I think there's a lack of content out there to be able to justify the price anymore.
Yeah.
But also the content that they're trying to make, we've lived in very good times where they're making some movie quality stuff that we get to watch for $8 a month.
But the bar is set now.
The bar is set there.
Yeah,
and so when they come out with something like Kevin Can Wait, or I'm trying to think of other sitcoms that are kind of just okay, middling.
That Kevin James one was just slow.
The other NASCAR Kevin James one, they'll make it. It won't hit as hard as the stuff they make for a ton of money.
Yeah.
And suddenly they won't make it anymore. It's like, no, you need to fill the channel with that kind of, like, let's be honest, garbage.
Yeah.
Just because, not that was garbage, but you need to fill it up with that fluff.
Yeah.
So there's a reason for people to be tuned in between the big shows.
Yeah. And some of those things are good for like a couple who doesn't have something to watch, and like, oh, well, let's just check this out, and they'll binge the whole thing. Yeah. Or to put on in the background while you're, painting your minifigs, or, working on homework or something like that. I tend to put on Seinfeld because it's something I'm familiar with and used to, or Star Trek. But it's good to have more options like that. Even if it doesn't make them a ton of money, it fills in your content and gets, subscriptions.
Hulu, I think, thrives in that scenario, because Hulu takes the shows that already air. We're going to be talking about Abbott Elementary in a little bit. And the next day off of ABC, it's on Hulu, and that's where I watch it. That's where a lot of the people our age watches it, not on actual ABC. Who does that?
Right.
And so that, I think, is why Hulu's never really tried to compete with Netflix and like that. They do make high quality content. Handmaid's Tale, which is like, I think every 5 years now, it's taking so long for them to make a new one of those. But their bread and butter is the fact that stuff that's made on FX, that makes their money on FX, then doubles down and makes more money on Hulu.
Yeah.
And maybe there's something that people need to be learning from them.
Yeah.
Building that market.
I like it.
Okay. The other trailer that we got is Thunderbolts. This is the Marvel movie coming up. Did you have a chance to watch that one?
I don't think I saw that trailer.
Let's take a moment for you to watch it now, okay?
Oh.
All right. So we just watched the Thunderbolts trailer. Jalen, your immediate reaction?
That looks really good. I have this blind spot in Marvel of all the,
grounded
spy drama and stuff like that. I really wasn't the biggest fan of Captain America. I know he's like, a major anchor to the franchise. He's on my lower end of the Marvel characters, honestly.
You're literally sitting next to my new artwork of Captain America, John.
And so it just kind of all the spin-off shows that they had and stuff too, I haven't watched.
So Falcon and the Winter Soldier, there's characters there. You saw U.S. Agent, which is, just to kind of give you the brief one line on him, is when Captain America goes away, the United States government wants to make their own Captain America. That's him.
Yeah. But wasn't Captain America made from the U.S. government originally?
Yeah, from like the 30s.
Yeah.
But we're talking about today's U.S. government, right?
Yeah. Capitalism.
Control. More capitalism, exactly.
Yeah.
Great job. That's fair. And then we also had, you also saw, who else did we see in this? You got Red Guardian and you got Yelena, of course. Those are both from the Black Widow movie. You didn't watch those either.
Watch those either, yeah.
That's just the one movie.
Yeah.
But it is quite good.
Yeah.
And you also,
Ghost. I really liked Ghost from the Ant-Man.
But you also saw Taskmaster there too, also from Black Widow.
Oh, okay.
Taskmaster, outside of being an amazing show from the UK,
Mhm.
is a super villain
Mhm.
that can match anybody's fighting style.
Okay.
Match the moves 100%.
Yeah.
Taskmaster's a great villain.
That's pretty cool.
I think the MCU is kind of lackluster on that character, but very good in the comics.
Yeah.
So I think you're gonna have to revisit some of those.
I think so. As much as like the shows and movies didn't get my attention in advance, this looks really good.
Yes.
So this looks like what I want those shows to be.
Mm-hmm.
But now they got all these characters I have to learn from watching those other movies and shows. So I have until May of next year. I got time to get caught up. So yeah, definitely got to watch those.
The one character that you would not know about would be, what's his name, Bill or whatever. He pops out of the
Bob.
Bob.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
He's Sentry. And to give you the very simplified version of him, Superman with a split personality disorder. And one side's the good Superman.
Oh, this is like the boys, what's his name?
Homelander
from the boys.
Yeah, if Homelander had any good in him.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I guess there's the good side to it, too.
Yeah. And so it looks like, and we see that Val bought the Avengers Tower. Yeah. That's Julia Louis-Dreyfus' character in there.
She's awesome, too.
She is awesome. And so I love this spy thriller, this grounded version of Marvel that we're getting that peppered in as well, because with all the multiverse stuff, you lose sight of that. Yeah. It doesn't feel like anybody's people's gonna die. It doesn't feel like you see any threat to humanity, really. I mean, I'm sure there's a big threat. You don't feel it. This, you feel it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and there's a point where you get tired of having too much power, and it's unchecked power. Superman was perfectly written in the fact that he has kryptonite that is his absolute weakness, so it can get used against him in a lot of different scenarios. But when that's not around, he almost has endless power. It seems like, and not having the sun. But so I think this is a good way to take like, oh yeah, Iron Man had so much power. Hulk is unstoppable, and all these different characters. And it's like, well, let's get back to some like day-to-day heroes, because there's not everybody has superpowers. So these guys are just expert fighters and stuff like that. So,
and I do like that. You could just pitch them all as fighters, but really when you're watching that like fight scene that they have there, visually they all feel distinct. Yeah. Like you can see Ghost using the ability to tap around, jump around on stuff. I think Ghost, who was probably underutilized in Ant-Man 2, is going to be a bigger character in this.
Oh,
she looks really
dope. Her power is amazing. It's really cool. Or I guess it's a technology.
When she catches that dagger, then throws it the other direction, like that's cool.
So I wonder how much this kind of, I mean, I know our comic books have been written a long time ago, but they were written different than our movies are being made now. We're taking some of multiple comic books and kind of putting them together in a lot of cases. This reminds me so much of a video game, of a modern day video game, like League of Legends, where each character has very cool, very unique skills that have to work together to be able to win. What do you think?
Well, we do have a Marvel Overwatch coming up.
Yeah, that's right.
Coming up pretty soon, which I'm very excited to play. And we're going to be talking. It's funny that we keep referencing it. We're going to be talking about it pretty soon, about live service games. But yeah, I could see these characters fitting in there well. Ghost, I mean, talk about a character like Tracer from Overwatch, where she's able to blink around and stuff. Yep. I think that's going to make a lot of sense soon.
Yeah, that Thunderbolts does look good for sure.
It looks good. Comic book wise, I believe it's pretty newer, like what they're pulling from. It's a newer concept. It's a newer comic book stuff. So you can read into that too. Yeah. Let's keep in the world of comic books. Let's go to the DC side of things though. DC Studios is developing a new movie featuring Bane and Deathstroke. Now, we don't know if it's going to be Bane versus Deathstroke. We don't know if they're fighting a hero. They're both generally Batman villains. Obviously, Bane is. Yeah. What is your experience with Bane and Deathstroke, Jonathan?
So I only know the two Banes. There's the one from George Clooney's Batman. Yeah. Which was a flop, I think, for the most part. Is just not a very good Bane.
Not well received. Yeah.
Yeah. He's very simple and just a pet for Ivy. But.
Oh, I'm sorry. George Clooney one. Yeah.
What did I say?
No, you did say it right. My bad. Yeah. I immediately jumped to the one you're probably talking about next.
Oh, yeah. Tom Hardy's Bane, which was phenomenal. And that should be forever known as Bane from DC. He's probably one of my favorite villains in DC.
What's funny is he was not well received.
Oh, really?
People didn't like the voice.
Oh, I love the voice.
And when you hear Tom Hardy talk about how he developed that voice from an old boxer, and you're like, oh my God, I love it even more.
Right? Yeah. And then, I mean, he uses that voice in other cases, but one of our favorite movies, Lawless, he's very similar, but not obviously dressed the same. But he's just one of my favorite actors. I don't even know what category to put him in, but he's phenomenal.
He's very, very good.
But so yeah, I'm hoping that's specifically the Bane. And then Deathstroke was Will Smith's character in the
That's Deadshot.
Deadshot. Oh, okay.
But very similar, right? He's an assassin that, basically is unstoppable. He has a lot of run-ins with Teen Titans. If you remember the old Teen Titans cartoon, he was the villain for a lot of it.
Okay.
Along with Trigon.
Has he been in a live action movie?
He was teased at the end of one of the Snyderverse movies. He was going to be played by Joe Manganiello. But they didn't end up going through with it.
Okay.
But yeah, he's a really amazing assassin who goes toe to toe with Batman all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He is in one of the seasons of Arrow and is probably one of the best villains of Arrow too.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people are familiar there. So we talked about in the past with Joker, Batman getting or the Rogues Gallery of Batman. I'm sorry, getting their own movies is a very good idea.
Yeah.
We don't need to rehash it. Yes, Mr. Freeze is by far the best one.
Okay.
They need to do that. What do you think about these two villains getting their time in the sun?
I think that would be great. And I know you guys have talked about in the recent podcasts about how this anti-hero thing is getting a little overplayed and we don't really want to go to that. And I agree. I think what would be even better is two bads fighting to be the bad. Like who's going to take over Gotham? Like we see sometimes, like I'm sure you're seeing in the Penguin series I haven't seen yet, but like mob bosses fighting over who's going to control, the police department in the city and stuff like that, or who's going to have the power in the city. These guys can be two villains fighting to be the better villain and not necessarily any of them having a good. And then maybe in the future, they work together to take out, a hero that emerges or at least, take control of the city again from a hero. So I think it'd be great.
I would be so on board with, say, Bane takes over Gotham. One of the many times he's done something like that.
Yeah.
And somebody hires Deathstroke to go kill him.
Yeah.
And so then all of a sudden we have we don't want either side to be on the top, but we're rooting for Deathstroke to save Gotham.
Oh, because Deathstroke's more of an assassin, so he doesn't have the independent, agenda that Bane would have.
Yeah, he's pretty much always a villain, but yeah, you're right. His motivations are different than Bane's. Bane's is obviously, power and money and stuff like that too. I do want to have a more comic book accurate version of Bane, which is from not Venezuela or something like that, but it's a South American drug boss.
Yeah.
And incredibly strong with the venom that's coursing through his veins, but also one of the smarter villains that Batman ever faces.
Yeah.
And I think that's forgotten with that old George Clooney movie.
Yeah.
It's kind of brought up with the Nolan one, but people were overshadowed by The Voice.
Yeah.
So I want to see somebody who's like super calculating, a mob boss type character.
Yeah. I think The Voice was one of my favorite parts of him too. The character that he, created in that.
Yeah.
But I think we might have seen it. I think we saw a fight scene where he takes off his coat and he's got these huge arms.
Oh yeah,
and he just boxes.
It's the Batbreaker.
Yeah. So I think that'd be cool to see more of that same character. Don't change him too much, but like you're saying, they're probably going to recast him for this. It's a whole different.
They will, yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Now talking about recasting, who would you want to play this character if you're recasting him? I'm going to go out right off the bat and say Dave Bautista.
Really?
Oh yeah, Dave Bautista's lost a lot of weight lately. He's getting older, so he's trying to just be a normal size and not pure muscle, but I want someone that size. And Dave Bautista has come out as one of the best wrestlers turned actors I've seen ever. He's so good. So I want Dave Bautista put the muscle back on for this.
Yeah, really cool. I don't know. I can't think of any.
You're stuck in Tom Hardy.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's it's going to be a fun movie either way. Just watching Bane again and Return to Power and stuff, that'll be a blast. So hopefully that'll be good. And then let's go ahead and move on to some other DC news. Kyle Chandler is going to be playing Hal Jordan. Now, this is reportedly he's in talks, but it's all but confirmed. Hal Jordan, of course, one of the better known Green Lanterns, probably I would say the main Green Lantern for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And this is for the Lanterns series coming out in 2026 for Max, where he's going to be side by side with Jon Stewart and they're doing a detective story.
Yeah.
Kyle Chandler, I remember from early editions back in the 90s.
Yes. I saw your post about that too. And I was like, son of a gun. I know his face. And we used to watch that all the time when we were kids.
Yeah.
I think it was one of our mom's favorite shows too.
Probably
because he's a handsome guy.
She makes all the decisions based off of that. So if she's listening to this, hi mom. But most people probably know him as Friday Night Lights coach. He's the coach in that.
Yeah.
What do you think about the casting of Kyle for Hal Jordan?
I think it's great. He's just you got to play that all-American, grounded, typical white guy. So he's a good actor, but well-rounded and stuff like that. So I think it'll be a good
notably
fit.
Older than what you might think of Hal Jordan.
Oh, absolutely. But I think that was very well decided. I imagine they're doing the, old cop, young cop dynamic because there's no need to have two Green Lanterns on Earth. It must be this kind of passing of the torch we're going to see. He's training his replacement. So I think, we're probably going to see him aged up a little bit even in makeup and stuff. And then his partner is going to be as young as possible, hopefully like 20 or so.
Yeah, I like the idea of maybe him forgetting what it means to be a lantern, and then in the process of working next to John, rediscovering that at the end. Because Hal Jordan is so iconic. You don't want to necessarily lose Hal Jordan, but it would make total sense that he would forget his ways sometimes, as somebody who's such a vet.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of Jon Stewart, most of us of our age know Jon Stewart because of the amazing Justice League cartoon that followed up after Batman and Superman. Who do you want to play Jon Stewart? You had an idea you've mentioned before. I'm wondering if you remember what that idea was.
I don't remember his name. Yeah, I'm
John Boyega.
There you go, John Boyega. I'm like, if I see his face, maybe, but I think he'd be a perfect fit. I want to say he was like 30 or something. He's close to our age, but I think he can play younger. So if he's playing, like 25,
well, even if he's in his 30s, it's fine.
Yeah. But to play this, young cop, old cop kind of dynamic, but I think he could easily play that age character. And he's not a super well-known actor, but he's been in something, so he's recognizable.
Star Wars.
And he has, he's good. He was great in Star Wars. So I think it'd be fun to put him in there.
What elements of that relationship do you want? I mean, we know the good cop, bad cop stuff, or not even good cop, bad cop, old and new cop, basically. But what else can Green Lanterns bring to a detective story that might make it a little different?
Well, it's going to have the whole space element, right? Or alien interactions. So I expect a little bit of like kind of a Men in Black thing where there's a lot that we don't see that they do that happens to be in the world around us.
A great call out.
Yeah, right. But they would still be interacting with humans and in our world and protecting us from this other element that we don't really understand and we don't have the power to, protect ourselves from.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot they can explore there, but I think those would be two great actors together.
Men in Black surprised me. That was a good one. And I wouldn't mind for them to have some interactions with John Johns, with Martian Manhunter, one of my favorite characters that's so underutilized.
Yeah.
I have so many of my favorite characters. How many times do I say that?
Right.
But, when you're dealing with the green Martians and the white Martians, when the white Martians are on Earth, then how does John Johns survive this? And that's fun thing to kind of explore. So what if they come across a Martian's body and it's a green Martian, and then they go to John's and John, and John's like, they're all dead. I'm the only one. He's like, no, you're not. There's one in the middle of Illinois that we just found in a field. And so then it's a hunt for the white Martians, and maybe the whole, like, I'm already writing James Gunn, let me give you my address.
Right.
No, but you know what I'm saying? Like, then you can kind of introduce that as a wider story into the DCU.
Yeah. And I think you're the kind of story you're already telling is hopefully what they're going for. Very grounded. It's got these elements from space and these bigger picture things, but it's really, all right, we're not going to take a bus. They can fly, but they're going to have to travel from one place to another, and they're looking for a person or a phone number or a name or something like that. So they actually got to talk to people and make it very like beat cop-esque detective, regular daily detective thing, but happens to have elements of this bigger space that they're involved in.
Yeah. Yeah. And there could be definitely some action moments where they have to bust out the rings, but that doesn't necessarily need to be a big part of it.
Yeah.
And the idea is that you're establishing these characters. So eventually when we do get back to a Justice League type movie, when you add these characters next to the Superman that we're about to get and the Batman eventually will get, it needs to feel natural, but also very different from them too.
Yeah.
And I think that's how, like, we're going to get these investigators that are hard-nosed cops in DC that'll mix with the others.
Who do you think Green Lantern would be in the MCU? Like, how does he equate with the whole, like, he's very grounded, but has access to space and stuff. It kind of reminds me of the modern version of Spider-Man where he is now, where he's kind of like the regular friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and this, space Avenger kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think?
I could see, I think Thor's kind of that where but he's more so in space than on Earth.
Yeah.
And Star-Lord is what I think they're making him. I think they're making the MCU Star-Lord that eventually, because now he's not part of the Guardians of the Galaxy and he's just living in his old hometown.
Yeah.
So I could see him kind of embracing that identity.
Okay.
And jumping into it.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Live service games. What are some of the live service games you've played in the past?
Fortnite, Overwatch. What else? I'm sure there's plenty of them. Minecraft for sure.
Minecraft's not so much live service.
No. Oh, well, they just did updates.
We just play it live together.
And we played it in beta for a long time.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, it's not. I see what you mean. Yeah. Shoot, what else? I know there's several of them. I don't play a lot of games these days, but I'm sure there's plenty more.
It feels like live service games had a moment though, where like everything was going to come out as live service games, and it was kind of a detriment to us as gamers sometimes.
The success of Fortnite, I think, was kind of a big boom. Yeah, and everyone's like, oh, let's copy what they did and try to print cash too. I'm sure some did good and a lot didn't, but I can't think of what were the other big stars out of that.
The unique success of Overwatch too, where they were like, we're going to come out with a game, and then fans are going to be such big fans of the game that they embrace the brand and start to read the comic books and watch the videos and build the world for them. So all they have to do is keep putting out the game and the skins, and as long as they didn't mess it up, which eventually they kind of mess it up a little bit, we're fine. And that's kind of what they were doing. So live service games became big. Well, recently we had a game come out. Its name is Concord, and a lot of you gamers out there are very familiar with this. It came out on September 6th. Now, Jonathan, do you remember how much I said that this game cost Sony to publish, for it to be made and then Sony to publish?
$400 million?
$400 million.
That's crazy.
So much money.
I can't imagine. I mean, I'm sure most games are like 20 million. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even that, it's just the idea that you're going to put out $400 million for unproven IP.
Yeah.
And in an oversaturated market. You just mentioned games that this game's mimicking,
Yeah.
So in the early marketing for it, first off, they said it's going to be $40, $39.99. Overwatch went to free. You bought the first game for $30, but now it's free for the second game.
Yeah.
Fortnite completely free except for the skins. So you're competing with that right off the bat. And then not only that, but then in the marketing, it was very evident that they were just doing another Overwatch. There were people who, of course, the quote unquote woke. Oh, this is woke,
Yeah.
They always sour the taste. It's something that me and Thomas often talk about. Is like, I love Agatha all along. I hate how I have to defend a show that's not my show sometimes for people who are not even giving it a chance just because of what they presume.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, so Concord was coming up against some headwinds.
Yeah.
When it released, how many people do you think were playing that game when it released?
I mean,
how many do you expect?
400, whatever the server capacity is. You think, oh man, this is such a big game. They must have put, out of that 400 million, they must put a lot into marketing and promoting it and getting people ready to play it in advance. So maybe a few 100,000 people playing in the first
700 people.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
700 people are playing that game.
That's nothing.
Yeah. And then they didn't sell more than 25,000 copies in a total across PlayStation and PC. But at any one time, there's only 700 people playing that game at all. So
how many of those are the developer's family? Right? You're like telling all your friends, hey, just hop on, just play today. We just want to get our numbers up. So probably a couple hundred are just people that knew people.
Yeah, if you minus Sony employees, you're looking at 200 less probably.
Jesus.
No, but that's laughable. It's not even worth having the servers on, using the energy to run the servers at that point.
They send everybody home. It's a shame.
So this $400 million game that cost people $40 was going to be shut down. It is shut down already in 2 weeks. They shut the game down.
That's crazy.
And they felt so bad about how bad this went that they even returned the money to the people who bought the game.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Please forget us. Yeah. Is basically the idea.
Ah, man.
Yeah.
And I know Sony has the money to absorb something like this, and they'll probably use this as a great tax write-off to, soften their bottom line and whatnot. But what a terrible, mistake, I guess.
Yeah. Well, this isn't the only one that's failed. This live service game, it's been happening kind of often recently. There's Blaze Ball and then there's Knockout City that both came out and went down pretty fast as well. One of the problems with live service games is they depend on a few things. First off, they have to catch fire. Yeah. Unlike other games that can just build up over time, because these games are usually free off the bat, but also just need constant players, they need to catch fire immediately. They need to be Fortnite big.
Based on a viral reaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if it's not catching that, you got a problem right off the bat. But they also need a stable monetization where the player gets invested enough to want to put extra money into the game and want to play long enough to earn things for free or earn things to be able to eventually buy stuff, right? Yes. So there has to be a reason to be investing your time.
Yeah, never just a one-time purchase, but something we can slowly collect money as we go and grow.
And there has to be constant content updates. You can't just say, don't worry, in 3 months, we'll have something coming out. No, there needs to be something coming out a week after release and a month after release every time. Yeah. Because unlike, say, if you play God of War, you play the game, you finish it, that's great. You tell people how good the game was, and then you're done with it and you put it aside, but you spent $70 on the game and you got that money's worth.
Yeah.
This is expecting more content to be coming because they didn't spend all that much money and they're planning on spending money on the road. So that's a lot of manpower.
Yeah. Well, I think these people are attacking it from the completely wrong angle, and it might even be the wrong people that are doing it, really. It's, to me, the way we talk about Fortnite, it doesn't sound like it's a game for gamers. This is a social media platform. This is a place for kids to get together and play. So it's like back in the day, we would log into MySpace, or now pretty much everybody has a Facebook. You get on there. This is like a virtual Facebook. You get on there to meet with your friends, hang out. It's free to go there. You could see, what costume the other person's wearing and vice versa. You could check out their house kind of thing and see what collectibles they have. And it's a place to hang out where you can just have fun and bullshit and fight, play the game.
Yeah.
But then on the side of that, it's like, oh, I want to get a Pikachu costume or whatever, so my friends could see how much I like Pokemon. Then you pay $3 or whatever and you get that skin. That's fine. So all these DLCs are added on, but it's all based on the social aspect of the game, not physically playing the game. I don't think most of the skins ever increase your ability within the game.
Yeah,
they're all, physical. They're all visible.
Fact, anytime a skin changes the hitbox, like how big a person is, so they're able to hit by bullets easier or harder.
Yeah.
If that ever comes out, Fortnite quickly adjusts it to make sure that's not a problem anymore.
Yeah.
Because they are so adamant that they're cosmetic only.
Yeah.
And that's a great point, that needs to be something that you're bragging to your friends about. And so that's why I think Fortnite does well, is because they have so many licensing agreements that they do that. They make it to where they could. And then with Fortnite, there is some really cool skins and stuff like that to have, but it's also team-based. Fortnite's very team-based. So you have friends that are, matter of fact, one of my friends just got Sea of Thieves.
Mm-hmm. Such a good game.
Another good live service game.
Yeah. Oh,
and I haven't played Sea of Thieves in a long time. I'm very busy right now, but because he just downloaded it, I'm like, don't worry, I'm getting it on board. I'll be on board. I'll be, behind the helm.
Yeah.
Because they're playing it. And that's what makes that game continuously successful.
Yeah.
Do you think live service games, I mean, there was a point where we wanted them to all die because they felt like we weren't getting what we actually wanted out of them.
I think they need to keep going, but I think it should be like, I don't think their competition is with other games. I think it's like the metaverse or something like that.
Right.
Like, I think it needs to pivot and focus on this social aspect of the game. Like Sea of Thieves is fun because we're going on an adventure, but it's not because I'm going on an adventure by myself. I've tried that and it gets boring really fast. It's because we're going together and we each kind of play different roles to help, survive and succeed and stuff like that in the game. So it's completely pivotal on the social aspect versus a Call of Duty game or an old Mario game where multiplayer is possible, but you don't need the other player. It's just, to play two different roles, to be playing the same game, usually on the couch together kind of thing. In these games, you each play, like in World of Warcraft and stuff like that, you each play a different character with a different responsibility. And, it works a lot better when you guys work together.
Yeah, you're a gear in the machine.
So I think it's so much a social aspect versus the game itself.
One of the testaments to longevity in gaming too is I feel like is the stories you tell each other. And the stories you tell other people about your single player games is more like, it's a really cool game. I really like this moment. But we will remember stories from 20 years ago. We do remember stories from 20 years ago. Matter of fact, Joe will always remind me of them that are moments between us in that environment. Like you're saying with this metaverse or a Ready Player One type universe, where it's not the game that maybe enhanced it. We were in the game, but it's something we did that was like, oh my God. And as I'm saying this, even with just Sea of Thieves, there's so many countless times we've done something crazy or whatever. And those are the memorable moments more so than the actual story of Sea of Thieves or the actual story that's in any of these. So I do want live service games to continue. I just think that they need to see what happened with Concord, what's happened with Knockout City and stuff like that. And adjust. What kind of adjustments do they need to make to be long lasting?
Well, like the things you pointed out where they have to have fresh content continuously coming out. So there's something else for you and your friends to do when you go on there and focus, mostly, I guess there needs to be some of both, but focus a lot on the social, access and abilities in the game so that there's things for you to do with your friends versus just a storyline in the game. And being able to share it. Like, I don't know how many people post what's going on in their games, but like you're saying, you want to be able to tell the story of this crazy adventure that you had. Right. So if you can like maybe save a clip from it and then you can
lean in on that.
Yeah. You could post it to your social media platforms and stuff like that would be really cool.
I always see things on TikTok of like some crazy cool shot they did on Fortnite. I haven't played Fortnite in a long time. This is the last time I played with my nephew. Yeah. But I still see those clips and it's like, oh, that was cool, And so sharing that gets people excited about it and they want to participate in the universe as well. And that gives you that longevity you need.
Yeah, for sure.
So hopefully we learn from the collapse of Concord, and for those poor people that made that game and were looking forward to a long lasting job, they find some alternative source. Jonathan, we're going to be moving now to our October watch list, what people should be streaming this month. And you're taking the lead on this one.
Oh, yeah. We got a lot of good stuff coming out. So Salem's Lot is coming to HBO Max October 3rd.
It's a Stephen King movie. We used to watch this a lot as kids.
Oh, yeah. I love what was the
Landeliers.
Landeliers? Yep, that was one of
I was
one of
waiting
my
for you to
favorite
say
ones.
it.
Yeah, there's so many of them though. I don't know how many books he wrote, but it seems like he was just turning them out quickly.
That man might be at like $300.
Yeah, and so many were made into small series or movies. But and if you don't know, you probably wouldn't realize it. But things like It are made from Stephen King, and it's like
Misery.
Well, some of these were like big, blockbuster movies, and well known, but you don't realize because he's got 500 or so.
That Cemetery thinks one of his too. Like there's so many that you wouldn't even think about. They
could almost make a separate streaming service that is Stephen King.
They really could. Cujo, the one with the crazy dog, he made that one weekend when he was drunk.
Jesus.
It's a great movie.
He just has so much creativity coming out of him. He just can write a story no matter what's going on.
It's awesome.
Soon we have The Legend of Vox Machina coming out, season 3. Have you seen that?
I haven't watched it. Thomas is always suggesting that to me. And it's something that you and me have been talking about. We both watch Fantasy High from Dimension 20.
Yeah.
That's basically what this is it's a D&D action game or a D&D tabletop game that they turned into a cartoon telling the story that they did in the campaign.
That's so cool.
And I really want them to do that with Fantasy High. I mean, that's just a slam dunk.
That was such a good story.
But Thomas swears by this and he doesn't play D&D.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I guess you can like it and not play it, but
yeah, there's elements there where like I think the great thing about D&D is that the story won't go with what you naturally would think would go.
Yeah.
Like I plan all the day long for you guys and you still do crazy things like use a river to bring down an owlbear or befriend the dragon you're supposed to kill real fast.
Trying to stab a random barkeep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's good because like when you read a book and the story has all this depth to it, but like when you're playing D&D or watching a D&D campaign, it's like reading is sometimes slow and whatnot, but it's like it builds. I don't know how to say it. It builds differently than reading a book because it's being built in front of you, I think, and in chunks, and it gets you so much more excited because it's not predetermined. It's by chance, by the roll of the dice, and with your own creativity and your the players feeding into it. So I think that makes the stories individually so much more fun.
And everybody's more invested into it and they have to take more ownership in it so they care more.
Yeah. So like when we're watching Fantasy High, I'm creating this whole visual story in my head. I'm watching it as, they're playing it. And, you could do that with a book, but it's just more, that's what, maybe it's so much more detail and in depth because, there's more between the lines when you're playing in D&D, I think.
Brendan Lee Mulligan, by the way, recently did an interview when somebody asked him, like, when are you guys going to put out a TTRPG that's in Fantasy High's world?
Yeah.
He's like, we know we're kind of working on it, but also like very busy. A lot of
other stuff,
yeah. So when that does happen, we're going to have to do some Fantasy High. That would be so cool.
Absolutely. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so we also got The Office Australian edition coming out in October 7th. That should be good. We also know there's a spinoff of The Office in the US coming. But this is just like we have the British Office and then the US Office. This is the Australian Office.
Right. And there are a couple of people I recognize from Taskmaster.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I know international people nowadays. But yeah, it has a different vibe in a way. Like it's still definitely like, okay, you could tell she's playing kind of the Michael Scott character.
Yeah.
There's a different vibe. And I wonder how well that'll translate to American audiences. But luckily we get to find out because it's going to be on Prime for us.
Yeah.
So we still get to watch along with them too, which is, I think is pretty neat. It's something that I think when the original Office came out, there was no streaming services really. There was kind of Netflix,
which
shows how old that show actually is.
Was it still the mailing a DVD to your house system? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's crazy. We also got Abbott Elementary season 4 coming out. If you haven't watched that, that's such a good like family friendly sitcom. It feels like a late 90s, early 2000s sitcom. It's just fun. I mean, without some of the stuff that we don't accept anymore. I don't know how to say that.
But when we talked earlier about how you sometimes you just need stuff to be able to throw on.
Yeah.
That's on Hulu. And it's one of those shows where I've rewatched it a couple times just because I'll throw it on while I'm doing other things.
Yeah.
And then you catch the one or two jokes on there and some amazing characters. What's the principal's name?
Oh, I don't remember, but she is funny.
Yeah, I love her so much.
Gosh.
Ava.
Ava, yeah.
There it is.
There you go. So this reminds me though, it does have a lot of the same vibes as The Office to me. It's like The Office in a school setting, a little
the
more
mockumentary thing where they're doing, talking to camera.
A little more comical, but it's the dynamic of the cast that really makes it, which is great. All right, so we also got Tomb Raider: The Legend of Lara Croft coming to Netflix October 10th, the animated series. Yeah. If you're big fans of Tomb Raider, check it out. I'm sure Squeaks will be watching it. Gastronauts from Dropout. If you guys don't have Dropout, it's another streaming service you should totally check out.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of Brendan, he's going to be on the first episode.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And the premise of that show, so Jordan's hosting it from Good Mythical Morning.
Mm-hmm.
So Jordan's now pulling double duty over on Dropout as well.
Right.
But the idea is that 4 comedians sit in and tell professional chefs what to make to try to make it funny and mess it up a little bit. And they're like, I'm trying to think of some, like there's some wild things.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is they always turn out delicious, but it looks insane
because we want you to cook zebra, but with fig sauce or something like that.
Well, one was like, I want it to look like I threw it up.
Oh, okay.
And then it has to be delicious still.
Yeah.
And so then you have to do that. And so, but Brendan's one of the first comedians.
Those poor chefs. They get me so stressed. Oh man. But yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
I was thinking like, man, you know what? If I was to make my own like spinoff or series or something like that, it should be about food. I like food. I could just, it'd be a good excuse just to eat, terrible things all the time, unhealthy things all the time. But no, that's a bad idea. We also got Ghost season 4 coming to Paramount Plus and CBS.
Yeah, it's to me, it's one of those sitcoms in a way, but also I always like the only time I like a romantic comedy is when it's like, oh, but he's a ghost, or oh, but he's a vampire, or she's a vampire.
Add a sci-fi element.
Yeah, that's what this is. It's like a sitcom, but also I get to do all the world building. Like, and they joke about it in the show too. It's like when they find out that the ghost can't go through lead, and they're like, one of the characters like, oh, I always love when they add Lord of this. and so
that's true. Breaking the fourth wall a little bit.
But that's exactly it. Whenever they do something like, they're like, oh, remember for the future now.
Yeah.
That,
that's kind of funny. I know. Cool. I think I saw the first season of that. It was
and they
good.
even, just adding to it, they always joke about how like they can go through walls, but then they don't go through the floor. So anybody who is new to their finding out that there's ghosts is like, wait, they can sit on furniture, but they can't. Don't ask questions. They always do that. It's a delightful show.
Our world has lines in this plane and not that plane.
Yeah.
All right. We also got What We Do in the Shadows season 6 coming to FX and Hulu.
Same thing.
October 21st.
It's incredibly well written. This is the final season.
Yeah.
It's Taika Waititi. He did the movie for it back down on New Zealand, and this is kind of the reverse of The Office type of thing. But this is the show version that we get up here, and it's amazing that this is gonna be the final season because that is one of my most highly recommended shows to people who are looking for something fun to watch.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we got the last season of Star Trek Lower Decks. Final season coming out.
We need more Star Trek.
October 24th. I know we do have Starfleet Academy coming.
Yeah.
I don't know when that's going to be released, but I know they're working on it with Robert Picardo is going to be in it. So
and Strange New Worlds season 4 is filming right now.
Yeah. They got to hurry up.
They do have
Stop
to hurry up.
Everything else on Paramount and just push those out quickly.
It's hard because back in the day when Voyager and Next Gen, because they were like 22 episodes each.
Yeah.
So we had plenty to go through.
And they were probably very cost effective for them. It was very, cheap production. So it wasn't hard for them to keep it going with other stuff. But these are now, they put a lot more money into them.
5 rooms on Voyager that we'd see all the time. And then when they got the what was it called? The, what's 7 of 9's room?
The Borg alcove?
Not that, but.
Oh gosh, it's astrology. It's they study the stars in there.
But it was a big deal when they added that room to the show.
Yeah,
because it was like, oh man, a whole new part of the set.
God, how do I not remember that now?
I know dude, I'm totally blanking on it myself. But that show,
Astrometrics.
There you go.
Yeah.
But something about it is like, but those plain gray walls are so endearing to my memory,
Yeah.
And but it was very cheap.
Yeah.
I need to do a rewatch on. Oh God, that's a whole thing.
I know. I've been watching an episode every once in a while with my wife at night, and I'm trying to like, okay, gotta find an episode that's really gonna hook her. Like, what's she gonna like? And then as I'm reading the little recap of it, I'm like, that's gonna be an off-putting episode. And so it's hard to find one that I think mainstream non-sci-fi fans would really grab onto. So it takes me a few minutes to pick an episode.
Has she started to like the show at all?
I think so. She's not necessarily the stories, but the individual characters she's connecting with a little bit, which is what the show's about.
Well, speaking to that, is there any characters in particular that she
likes to learn about 7 of 9 because she's such a big character in the show and stuff like that. But the B'Elanna and Tom dynamic too, because I told her like, well, you're kind of sassy like her, and I'm kind of I don't know, not a punk like him, but I was a free bird before we met. Is what it boils down to. And then so now she's always relating them to us whenever we're watching it, which hey, that's great. Figure out characters that you like and follow along. Though, of course, 2 of my favorite that play together is Neelix and Tuvok. That's just such a great dynamic.
Now, with the Tom and B'Elanna episodes, have you showed her the one where they're stuck in the spacesuits out in space?
No, not yet.
Okay.
And I think that was early on. I think it was
that's like the
3.
first time we were like, oh, they're in love.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a very simple episode. It's just them 2 talking for the most part of that part of it. But it's so damn good. And then the sorry, like when they're about to die, and then all of a sudden you see Voyager on the reflection, you're like, that's so
such good directing. Yeah, and it's an episode I have put on before while she's there, but she wasn't paying attention to
Okay.
it. So yeah, I'll have to do that again. Speaking of good, good directing with that shot, I noticed I was watching Good Omens yesterday, I think,
So good.
and that's one thing I think is really carrying it for me. It makes it such a good show. Is really good directing.
Yeah.
I see like the angles and the camera shots and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and like, man, that is just smooth that they do it that way. So
Yeah. They let
I
them
usually
take
don't-
chances too.
yeah, I usually don't pay attention to fine details like that unless I'm going to do a review. And then I noticed, I was like, man, that's the actors are phenomenal, but
Oh, yeah.
also a great job of the director. So
You gotta love those two.
I like it,
The
yeah.
way that they're. I've been wanting you to watch that show because I think you understand that world a little bit better than I do even. And the way that like you have an angel and a devil or a demon or whatever working together like that, and it's like there's love there, you know.
Yeah.
And it feels so natural, even though they're on opposite sides. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like Romeo and Juliet in a way, but instead of just like, oh, we're hot teens, it's more like you're the only one that understands me in this
we've
world.
existed forever.
Yeah. So it's so cool. So well done. Today we are talking with David Howard, writer of Blood World, Phoenix Throne. How you doing today, David?
Good. So glad to be here. Thank you for having me. I had a little scheduling conflict before my end, so thank you for working with me, and I'm glad to be here. So
No problem. It's just part of the job now. It's scheduled around people. It's all good. So we have Blood World. It's a massive universe you're really building. Feels very Game of Thrones, Dune, sci-fi, fantasy mixed together. Can you kind of give us a little bit of what Blood World is?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I love to write or like to think about what if scenarios. So this is one of those situations where it was during the pandemic that this idea started coalescing in my head. And I was like, if I took the pandemic and everything that was going on and I start writing history, what does humanity look like in my head? And I started sitting down and writing history. I wrote 600 pages of history going all the way out to the 26th century, and then decided to start writing a comic based on where humanity was at that point, and all sorts of stuff has happened to us since then. I don't want to give it all away, but there have been cyber rebellions, there have been nuclear wars. The Earth has gone to hell in a handbasket, and everybody who could get off the planet got off the planet,
Yeah.
And we've settled into our solar system, and we haven't got faster than light travel yet. That's not part of our solar system, our universe. But we have conquered gravity. We could harness gravity, and that's part of weapons and a whole bunch of other stuff. And at its core, Blood World, the whole universe, is about three competing visions for the future of humanity.
Right.
Mutation, unchecked mutation, genetic engineering, and transhumanism, which is the combination of humanity and technology, and whose vision is going to win. And there's three factions, and those factions are basically in conflict with each other. And so this first book, Phoenix Throne, is looking more closely at the Ganymede monarchy, and they're the faction that is about combining humanity and technology. So
It is wild too how much they combine humanity and technology. What was some of your inspiration for them? Because it's so surprising every time it pops up. I don't want to give any spoilers, of course, as well, but every time it pops up in the book, you're like, whoa. What was your inspiration for that?
Well, part of it was, I'm an old school geek and nerd like everybody else out there. So I love Star Trek. And so there's the Borg,
Yeah.
So the Borg are obviously part of that. Another one is one of my favorite video games, which is Mass Effect. And at the end of Mass Effect, you get this option to be able to combine humanity with the Reaper technology. Sorry, spoiler, everyone. That game's been out for 15 years or something. But
Yeah.
so there's that going on. And then, and then part of it was just looking around at society. Cyberpunk is another one of my favorite games and settings. But you're looking around at our society now, we're already kind of heading that direction. You got Neuralink from Elon Musk going on. There are already people who are doing very basic adding technology to their bodies, people who are putting RFID chips in their bodies and stuff like that. So I think it's part of the future. And so our setting is 2587. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that there are going to be at least a group of people who are really devoted to that type of stuff. So
Yeah. And then with Phoenix Throne, there's this element of fantasy, right? With like I was mentioning before, this whole Game of Thrones thing. What about that is something that appealed to you as a story writer to kind of go back to this queens and dukes and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, first off, I mean, I am a fan of Game of Thrones. I like the TV series. I liked all of it, but it kind of went off the rails at the end. But
Of
I
course.
liked this TV series, and I like the books. Reading them, I wish that George R. R. Martin would finish them, but that's probably a
Amen.
pipe dream. But I like this idea, and that these people. I'm going to give a little bit. It's not a spoiler. It's part of the
Okay.
history, and I've kind of got it out there now. But the Ganymede monarchy, they are descendants of people who left Earth and committed a rebellion because they're religious, and religion had become outlawed on Earth for a variety of
Hmm.
reasons. And so they really have this more backward looking mindset as far as wanting to be traditional and follow these norms and everything. And they've got a number of different religions that went. So it wasn't just one religion like Christianity, it was Hinduism and Muslims
Yeah.
and Christianity, all Jewish, everything like that. So all these people got on these arcs and left and eventually crash landed. Some of them got lost. And so when it came down to it, they all kind of naturally banded together around their religion. This formed almost like fiefdoms, but they had to be relying on each other for survival as well. And so it naturally kind of formed into a monarch, a feudal structure. And it's fun to play with that because, writing politics and stuff like that is easier or more fun when you can have dynastic politics and all of these things going on. Meanwhile, their main enemies are the Seoul Scientific Symposium, who are a science-based meritocracy over there. They're almost like they're autocratic in a lot of ways, and
Yeah.
so they're like the best way I could think of is saying this is the far future, ultra progressive version
Hmm.
of a government in the future versus this very traditional structure. And so they're at odds in every way, and that's kind of how I wanted to set that up from a political standpoint. I mean, their religion over there in S3 is all about gene worship and ancestor worship is for genes and things. So very different. But so that's the high level. On a low
Yeah.
level, Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, having those feudal structures and backbiting and all of these different power structures, because there's also a church of technology and Blood World, gives a lot of ability to write drama within this science fiction setting. So it brings something different. And then finally, the last thing I'll say is you mentioned Dune before. Um, I love Dune. It's one of my influences for this book. And so, in Dune, you've got House Carino, you've got House Atreides, you've got all these various royal houses. And it allows you, you've got built-in conflict for the stories you're
Yeah.
writing, which is a cool thing to have, a tool to use when you're writing. So,
Yeah, it right away sets up loyalties and stuff like that. I mean, I read the first issue and immediately I'm like, oh, this guy I can get behind, and all of a sudden, I'm backing his banner in a way as a reader. And so when you're investing yourself immediately or taking ownership into one faction, it helps in setting up a story where you're like against the other faction at all costs and finding out who the bad guys are. It works really well. Looking at this story, it's in a far flung future, um, 2587, but still we're already seeing themes that are relative to, and sci-fi is that way, right? It's that lens on our own current day politics and stuff. Is there any themes that you're wanting to pull from today's society into the future?
yeah, I mean, there are quite a few. I mean, one of them is obviously the age-old theme of power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And there is
Hmm.
one character in there. Uh, you've read the first issue. At the end, there is a what's the word I'm looking for? I'm blanking. There's a surprise at the end. So
Yeah,
one
yeah.
character you will find he is doing something. Yeah, I borrowed that straight from George R. R. Martin. I'll just say
I
that.
figured you'd.
So
I was like, okay, I know what's going on with that.
yeah, you know, but the and but that's an age old theme. There
Mhm.
are people that are corrupt. There are people that are trying to undermine the system, and nothing worth nothing is worse than betrayal from within, you know. And then I'm not going to spoil anything more than that. So
Yeah.
you got that going on. The other thing you've got going on is that, pulling forward is that you've got this idea of, how do I say this? Elizabeth, who is the queen, is fighting not only to modernize and bring forward her realm and undo some of the progress against tradition.
Right.
She's fighting with that, but she's also trying to establish herself as being capable to lead this very aggressive and technological and warlike society as a female leader. And you see a little bit of that at the beginning, but there's more of that coming. And it's not, I'm not focusing, on the girl boss to all exclusions and everything, but kind of like Daenerys Targaryen, and I didn't mean this, but now that I'm looking at it, I'm realizing I kind of leaned on that a little bit. She's got to prove herself to be a
Yeah.
capable war leader because war is coming to the Ganymede monarchy. So that is going on. There are some other things that haven't been revealed yet in the story that we're really going to be touching on. One of them is going to be on reproductive politics. And I don't mean like our reproductive politics, but reproductive politics in the future. Because Elizabeth is a traditionalist versus when it comes to having children. And she's had children naturally, which is considered taboo and uncouth in the Ganymede monarchy, So that is going on. But I think the biggest thing that I wanted to bring forward is this idea that for all of our advancements by the year 2587, we're still fighting about many of the same things, which is religion, power, food, resources. And these things are eternal. And it doesn't really matter how advanced we get in the future, we're still going to be fighting over a lot of the same things because at its core, even though these people are 500 years removed from us, they're still human beings. So
Yeah. Isabel is such a fascinating character. I really feel like she's going to steal the show, right? And the way that her and her cousin kind of bounce off each other, he seems almost as like the rebellious, fun character to follow along. But immediately after the conversation, I'm like siding with Isabel all of a sudden. You're saying
yeah,
that she's trying to move the needle forward. How will her family try to help or deny her that?
well, like I said, I wrote a bunch of the history. Her
Mhm.
father died under mysterious circumstances, and he was
Oh
a
boy.
reformer. And when we just fulfilled our Kickstarter, and I sent out a brief timeline of the history, and you see that her father disappeared and died under mysterious circumstances. And I don't explain that, and eventually we will. But he was also a reformer, someone who was trying to do these things. And in Ganymede monarchy, there is this multi-layered feudal society. So not only do you have the great houses, those houses control various aspects of technology. So you've got agriculture is controlled over here, you've got technology, but you also have something called the Order of Ecclesiastes, which I love Warhammer 40K, so I kind of
Mhm.
built a lot of that off of that. And they control technology. And so the queen is the one who licenses the technology. So she's always in this back and forth with them and back and forth with the houses because technology, if whoever controls the technology in this society, controls the society. And
Mhm.
so the houses are always trying to get around her and build their own technology and things like that because they don't like being under her thumb. And so she is trying to allow more innovation and allow people in the society to use technology while at the same time trying to keep her power, which is a tightrope act. You know, she's
Yeah.
really walking that tightrope because if she gives away too much of her power, she's going to end up dead. Probably. At the same time, Isabel is also wants to go back to some more traditional things, like I said. So this idea of going back to their humanity. So Isabel has had 8 children
Mhm.
naturally, uh, which is unusual because children are grown in pods in the Ganymede monarchy.
Yeah.
And everyone looks at her as like a barbarian. and eventually we will meet her children and what is going on with them. But she's done a number of things that have gotten people whispering about her in the Ganymede monarchy. And but I think you've seen from the first issue, she's not afraid to wield her power when it's needed, you know?
Yeah.
And so she's got all of these worries going on. She's got a whole society and kingdom that she is constantly at odds with each other. They love to fight each other when they're not fighting other people. Meanwhile, one of her closest relatives, her cousin, Dominic, is a guy who is out there doing whatever the hell he wants when he wants, you know, and just causing no ends of problems for her, you know?
Oh yeah.
And yeah. And one of the things I love about this first issue and writing that character is that, you know, there's going to come a time, I think it's fair to say this, that Dominic is going to have to choose a side. And it's like, as the reader, where do you think Dominic will go? You know, so it'll be curious to see how everybody feels about Dominic and everything, because eventually this will come to a head. So because the conflict is still under the water right now, it hasn't risen to the surface, but eventually it will. And when it does, Dominic Chabot, who is her cousin, who is probably one of the best warriors in this realm, is going to be a sought after asset. And where is he going to go? So,
yeah. So first I want to address the fact that yes, we are recording in the morning, as your rooster is letting us know that.
I'm so sorry.
No. I have roosters too. So I'm well aware of the situation.
That is Chickpea the rooster, and he loves to be on every podcast. I swear he waits. So
you better add him as a character in the comic. This little robotic chicken running around.
That's a great idea, actually.
Yeah, Dominic is definitely like right. This we're hoping on a nice arc of becoming this loyal soldier, but in that first issue, he's scandalous. He's all pretty much fighting for fun. It seems like, and we have to shout out to before we move on to your artist, the fact that mech suits abound. Right, these people are in enhanced suits because of their tying humanity to technology, and that just looks cool in the end. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I got to give a shout out to, first of all, you know, when I wrote this, I had a vision in my head. And then my art director, who also did the cover, Jeff Bracey, came up with the concept art. And then we passed that off to our artist, who is Tosin Awasika. And he just knocked it out of the park, you know, coming up with what he saw as the visions of this. And I can't wait till, I mean, this is only the beginning. We've got a lot more planned to reveal as far as the mech suits and stuff, but we're planning on doing tech manuals and stuff like that. In the book, we have a blueprint for one of the suits, you know, and it's just the kind of stuff that I love. But yeah, Tosin and Jeff knocked it out of the park. Jeff did all of the initial concept art, and then Tosin took that and ran with it, and I think it looks absolutely beautiful. I really do. I love it. So
when working with these artists, first off, how did you meet them, and how do you instruct them? Do they follow your exact vision, or are they adding their own elements to comic books, and what kind of elements might those be?
Well, Jeff and I have been friends for a long time. So when I started working on this, originally I was going to write this as a novel, and then I was thinking about doing it as a comic. And I was running some ideas past people I knew, and a lot of people got really excited about it. And Jeff was one of those people who wanted to be involved. So we got involved with that. And Jeff is writing another book on Earth for us called Fellhand that he's going to be doing in the future. So that was how Jeff got involved. Now Tosin is someone I met through someone else, and he was been an artist in comic books, and he's in Nigeria. And I started talking to Tosin, and I asked him, I gave him some sample panels, and he drew some stuff, and I liked what he was doing. And Tosin works really fast. He's very professional, you know, which was a big plus, you know, two big pluses. So, and he did some great work, but he's one of those guys where there were a couple pages I got back, and I was like, you know, I would like to see this here or change that. And literally, it was not a negotiation or anything. It was like, okay, cool. And he would go back, and literally the changes, the inks would be done and finished and back to me within 24 hours, you know?
Incredible.
So, yeah. Yeah, so it's really amazing that way. As far as how I like to work with artists, it's funny. Every comic script I've written, I always put at the top, note to artists. This is how I see the panel layouts and everything in my head. Please feel free to change or add in or whatever you want to do as you see fit, because this is a collaboration. I always put that up
Wonderful.
top immediately. And so when I write, one of the best compliments I've ever gotten is from an artist I work with on another book I write called OPSEC, is that he's like, I feel like you're writing a short story for me. And that's kind of the way I write my script. So I love to sit there and like give very vivid details about things that may not even be on the page that are happening off page. And then I try and set up the panels like I would if I was writing a screenplay. So, with shots and stuff like that. But I want to give very vivid sensory descriptions for the artist so that they can feel it and try and get into it themselves. So, for instance, in one of the panels, there is a guy who gets fried through a virus being uploaded into a system during a
Yeah.
war, and in the script, I mean, I gave some very vivid descriptions of what was going on there, and then let Tosin, and then had some suggestions on how I saw the panel, but let Tosin bring that to life, and a lot of times I found that that works best. I always go back to this, and again, this is OPSEC, not Phoenix Throne, but one of the first panels for OPSEC ever drawn was this approach to this haunted castle. And I described it and everything, but then Mateo, my artist, puts in this little evil squirrel in the foreground, and it makes the whole panel. And I never wrote that, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things when you allow your artist to have some, collaboration and bring their own stuff in as well, it works out, because that's what really is going on here. It's the two of us working in tandem. So I like to give the artist a lot of freedom. So
That's great to see that collaboration. And in my experience with other comic book writers, it seems to be always when the comic book thrives for many issues is because of this collaboration process going forward. And shouting out to that first, like those panels we were talking about where the upload of virus and whatnot, that whole battle scene, the pacing on that is so rapid, so fast, where just one single panel will tell you an entire scene in it. And so yeah, that has to be a lot of collaboration right there because that could not have been easy to make that pacing make sense for the reader. That was
yeah,
very well done.
I'm so happy you say that though, because it's like it's one of those things where there was a lot of story to tell,
Mhm.
and I had all this, and I worked with Toast and all this, but it's like I really wanted to grab the reader right off the bat, be like, bam, hit you with the reader with this is at its essence what's going on in the Phoenix Throne, and then we kind of slow down in the middle, and then we hit you with a surprise at the end, a to make you wanting more for the second issue, and I think that it makes me really happy that you said that because I think that the pacing works in this book, and definitely grabs you, almost like a period or a episodic TV where this is
Yep.
our introductory issue. We want to get you invested right away, and then give you some story, and then really hit you with a God, my brain is what do they call it when it's like
There, cliffhanger, maybe.
cliffhanger. Thank you, my God,
There
it's
you
too early in the morning.
It is.
Yeah, so hit you with a cliffhanger that says, come on, Dave, I want issue 2 right now. So,
Yeah. It's a fantastic read, guys. It flies by. You're going through it very quickly. Like you said, that middle part where it's just the lore dump and stuff like that. You're just soaking in this world, and you're like, "Oh, I'm so ready for more world." And then, boom, that cliffhanger at the end. You're like, "What the hell?" So it's definitely worth checking out, guys. Um, where can people start getting their copies of Blood World Phoenix Throne?
So Phoenix Storm, we just finished up our Kickstarter right now. I'm in the process of delivering that, but we are going to be available on the anyoneworld.com for ASAP Imagination.
Mhm.
At the end of the month, our digital is going to be available. And once I have enough physical copies to send the publisher, we're going to have physical as well available there. But we are going to be available for digital at anyoneworld.com at the end of the month. And this month, depending on when you're watching this is September of 2024. So,
We'll have links in the description. and hopefully everything's up in time. We'll make sure it is, and so you guys can follow up. We're also gonna have links to your social so they can follow you on your journey in creating issue 2 and everything else coming in for Blood World. This has been a fantastic chat. I really appreciate you hanging out with me today, David. Thank you very much.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me, and it was great to talk to you about this. I love to talk Phoenix Throne and just talk comics in general, so thank you so much.
Anytime. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us this week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.